Hi, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Facebook Live. We're going to be talking to you guys today about coaching intermediate students to output. But before I do that, I want to begin by introducing myself just in case you don't know who I am. My name is Berta Delgadillo, and I am a Spanish teacher in South Georgia, Savannah, Georgia, to be exact, which is beautiful. You should come visit and let me know that you're here if you decide to come visit. So I teach in South Georgia, and I teach high school Spanish. And I've been teaching high school Spanish for the last 5 years, although my first job assignment ever was 2 years of middle school. And if you're a middle school teacher, kudos to you. You have so much patience, and I don't. I definitely love teaching high school. That's my jam. That's where I shine. It's very easy for me to develop relationships with my students. That's just, God. I think God gave me that gift, and I'm so thankful for that. But it's been wonderful. So I love teaching high school. I teach Spanish, and I love the power of integrating comprehensible input. That's a key ingredient in my classes, but I also draw from other experiences and approaches here and there to meet the needs of my students. Tonight, I have with me my good friend, Claudia Elliott. Claudia and I have worked together on projects, and I absolutely love working with her. I learned so much from her, and I'm going to let her introduce herself to you tonight.
Berta, thank you so much for inviting me to your group. I love your community. I love what you have done, and it's been so, inspiring to be able to work with Berta. I feel super honored and super blessed because I think we have been learning so much by discussing, by sharing resources, by sharing experiences. And I think that's the power of collaboration, and is the power of, being educators and really work with somebody. So my name is Claudia Elliott, and I am close by Berta. I am in Jacksonville, Florida, is North Florida, and you should really go and visit Savannah. I went for my honeymoon to Savannah, and I have been there a couple of times, and the last time was seeing my friend Berta. And when you go to Savannah, you really need to let her know, so she will take you to amazing restaurants. And she knows them all, and so you should really let her know. But I've been teaching Spanish since 2005, so 15 years, and I've always taught high school. I have been in all type of schools. I was working for like 4 years in an inner city school. Then I went to work for Florida Virtual School. And in the last 9 years, I have been working in a magnet. And I've been teaching level 1, level 3, and AP Spanish. And it has been a great experience. I taught elementary school when my kids were in elementary. They asked me to help. And I thought that was really fun. Like, I really didn't think that it was going to be fun, but that was super fun. Now my kids are middle school. And yes, middle school teachers, kudos to you, because there's a lot of patience that you must have. So I love to be teaching high school. I love to see my students grow. I love to see my students as freshmen, and then they come back to me as juniors. And I love to see the growth. Like, it is incredible. I love that. I feel like just knowing that you have impact in their life and knowing how they evolve. And sometimes as a junior, it was like, oh my God, Senora, you remember when I was doing this and when I like this? I know, I remember that. So it is just a great experience.
And also how they mature over time, because I had some freshmen who gave me some headaches. And then by the time they came to me as a junior again, I was like, oh my God, this child's coming to my class. And no, totally different child. Maturity, it does wonders.
And they even apologize, right? They even say, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I was so all over the place, and I gave you a hard time, but now. So it is great to see them grow, like when you have them for so many years in a row. So I love the experience, and I've been working with Berta in different projects, and we have been talking a lot about intermediate learners lately because we have so many of them in our classes. So thank you, Berta, for inviting me. It's just so fun to be in your community.
Thank you so much for accepting the invitation, Claudia. Well, we're going to go ahead and jump into our presentation for tonight and what we have to offer to you tonight as far as some experiences and strategies we want to share with you. So we're just going to move on to that part. Let me make sure I get my screen right. And let me make sure it's working. All right, here we are. So the first thing we want to talk about is why are we here? And we just want to kind of have a reality check. So a lot of people don't talk about output because as a comprehensible input teacher, we know that comprehensible input is the main protagonist of what we do in the classroom. We have to fill our students with a lot of comprehensible input and, fill it up, fill it up, fill it up, fill it up. And then they can give us just a little bit of output. So the reason why we're here is because Claudia and I, we both have our doors open to the teachers in our district and, anybody really that wants to come visit our classrooms. And I know that Claudia and I have had this experience where people come and they're like, well, oh my God, how did you get them to write all of that in level 2, early on level 2? How can you get them to write so many paragraphs? Or how can you get them to extend their sentences like that? And it definitely can be done. But we also want to tell you that it's a process. So Claudia, do you want to chime in with why are we here today?
Yes, and I think that's the main, like we want to, Berta and I are like, we have a very strong CI approach in our classroom. We understand that the main ingredient for language acquisition, it is comprehensible and compelling input. Is how we acquire languages. There is no doubt about it. We need to really fill them with a lot of comprehensible and compelling input. And we know that input must precede output. We also know that output is not going to look like the input that they understand. So even if we understand something, it doesn't mean that our students can produce that because they don't own that language. Now, that doesn't mean that they cannot produce. They can produce. And output, it becomes a very special element because it not only help our students to be motivated in the class, it just kind of gives them a voice in what we discuss in class. Now, that output cannot be any output. It has to be specific type of output that allow us to have these discussions in class. And so there is a role of output. We believe that there is this role of output. We have felt it in our classes, and we can have our students to do output in the class, but we need to understand that that output doesn't look sometimes like the thing that we envision in class. We sometimes envision, because you're intermediate learner, you really can narrate events in the past without any support. No, that's not going to happen. Or because you're intermediate learner, I know that you're going to come to my class on day 1 and you can maintain a conversation in the language. Maybe not.
I want to interrupt you for a second, Claudia, and I want to kind of highlight, because I have the screen in front of me, so I can't really highlight the actual blurb or conversation, but Kathy Perry says, output never looks like the input, but it is so rewarding for them to feel ownership. Yes, and that is absolutely, you nailed it, Kathy. That's why we are here, because we know that output, and like Laura del Moral just said, output is a long journey. We know this. We absolutely know this. And I think Bill Van Patten said in one of his shows, his podcast, he said that CI is it's in the driver's seat, and output is just along for the ride.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right.
So yes, but output is important too, because it helps the students, like Kathy just said, take that ownership. And I don't know about you, but my students get really excited what they can produce. And another reason why we're here that's very important to talk about output is because while we know that comprehensible input, it's the key and it's the absolute way, we have testing. We have certain demands from our districts that sometimes we don't have any control of that we have to meet, and our kids must produce output. So how do we prepare them for that? Because in some states, your job depends on it. Thankfully, that's not the case in South Georgia, but I know that in some states, teachers' jobs depend, their rating scales depend on the performance of the students on those tests. So we have to have these conversations, because although we absolutely love the power of comprehensible input, there are assessments that are not going to go anywhere. Maybe next year, maybe the year after. Let's pray. But as of now and next year, we have to make sure our students are ready for such assessments.
Exactly. And I also feel like, and Bill Van Patten said that in intermediate level is when we start that, like when we really can start doing that. Like I see in novice level, the reluctance of some educators to do output in their classes because the kids may not be ready. But in the intermediate levels, we really need to start scaffolding, putting them to start taking those risks. Going out there, start creating. Yes, it looks messy. And when we as educators understand how messy can be, we can support them in a positive way. So instead of bringing, that kind of like disappointment phase, we know, because we already know what the proficiency should be, then we can support that output. Knowing that it is messy, knowing the limitations of their ability to output, but we want to start pushing them to exhibit those features that are going to be very important, not essential. I know that in IB exams, in AP exams, in end of course exams. So I know it's not essential. I know that you don't have to. We're not talking about accuracy here. We're not talking about, we need to control predicate or imperfect or command form. We are talking about output and creating language in a communicative way. So that is a reality check. That's why we're here.
And then, here's the biggest reality check. While we are here and we want to share strategies that we've used in the classroom that are successful in our classes in leading our students to produce output and pushing them to produce the best output possible, we want to let you know one thing. There is no magic pill. There's absolutely no magic pill, no quick fix, no one method, because whatever works in my classroom may not, it probably will work in somebody else's classroom, but you ultimately, you drive your own classroom. And you lead your own classroom because you have students with very different needs. So tonight we're going to be sharing strategies with you that we hope you can take and use. And if you think you can try once, and if that didn't work, then you don't have to do it again. Or maybe just reflect on why it didn't work. Some I've done that. I've tried classroom jobs a long time ago, and they didn't work for me the first time. And then I waited a semester later. This was years ago, and then they worked for me the second time, and I had them in my classroom ever since. But talking about output, whatever we're going to tell you tonight, we hope that it's going to be beneficial to you, and ultimately you decide to try it in your class. And we hope that you do, and you tell us about it.
I know. And what Berta is saying is so true. And I want to just say, yes, Berta, you're right. We just want to give and share what it has worked. But we believe that as an educator, you are the expert in your class. And I think we need to open the conversation and engage in that conversation. And I think that's why I love these Facebook Lives, because that is engagement, is motivation, is like making, like think about it and adopt, adjust, or delete. Is whatever works for you, because at the end you are the person that is opening the door. And
you know your challenges in your classroom. You know your limitations as a teacher. You know your students better than we do. I mean, there's so many factors into it. So we can't just tell you that we have the one method or the one magic strategy, because we don't. This is what works for our classrooms. This has been successful. You can try it, and we're sure that it's going to work for you too. You can tweak it, because I've tweaked God knows how many strategies I learned from other people until they work for me.
Me too. And I think it wouldn't be fair because sometimes that happens to me, Berta. I don't know if it has happened to you, but sometimes I share something with the teacher, and then the teacher feels very, I don't know, defeated because the outcome of that specific strategy didn't look like the output in my class. And as like maybe your reality was different, maybe your kids were different.
The
So
teacher's
sometimes,
background might have been different too.
yes, and that
Sometimes
was
we are
fine.
not ready to try certain things.
Yes. So we invite you to listen this with open mind and to adjust and tweak as much as you want. And please just share with us. That's what we want, like to hear how what you're thinking about.
All right, so we're gonna be talking first about our favorite strategies to support output. And the first one that I want to share with you, it's called, and I'm sure you have heard, level up. You lead your students to level up their language. I've seen Bethany Drew do this very well in her classes. I have seen, well, I haven't seen her, but I've seen her blog and it's amazing. And I've seen Meredith White do an amazing job with giving her students options to level up in their writing. And if you want to know more about level up and you actually want to instruct your students how to level up, if you click on the picture, and I'm going to, as soon as I'm done talking and Claudia gives you the next segment, I will share with you, well, I'm going to have to do it until after the session is over because I can't close this window right now, but I will share with you this presentation, and if you click on the image that has the little hand, it will take you to the website. We got this image from Spanish Plants. So I used the same presentation at the beginning of my level 2 class because I don't know about you, but my students who come to me for level 2 are usually freshmen and sophomores, mainly freshmen who took Spanish 1 in the different middle schools in my county. Sometimes they come from really great teachers. Sometimes they come from teachers who are doing their best, and sometimes I'm not here to criticize anybody, but sometimes they're not ready, and it might not be the teacher's fault. It might be that maybe they had a sub that whole semester, but it doesn't matter because it shouldn't matter who they had and what they did or didn't do with the students in Spanish 1. The way I see it is, okay, this student is in Spanish 2 and he's novice low. So what are we gonna do about it? Or the student is in Spanish 2 and is barely novice mid. So what am I going to do about it? So I start them up at the beginning with very basic sentences in Spanish 2, and I use this presentation that's called Level Up from Spanish Plans, and I print the different documents that come with it, and I model for my students, which is modeling is like the one thing that is so important for us to do with our students. I model a sentence. So I would start with a simple sentence like, me gusta bailar. I like to dance. And then I go through all the questions, and I have the questions on my walls so I can point at them. And then, I said, me gusta bailar, I like to dance con mi esposo, with my husband. Me gusta bailar con mi esposo bachata. I love to dance bachata, which is a true statement. True. So I'm letting my students know about me in a very personal way. And that's another thing. When we're modeling and we're modeling to our students how to talk about themselves, it's an excellent opportunity for you to open up about yourself and, allow the students to get to know you. They really appreciate that. So that way, as I'm building that sentence and I said, I like to dance bachata with my husband on Fridays at X venue. Okay, I'm not going to call it club with the students. So, but that's the point. The point is to show them a huge sentence. And then I have them in groups, create different sentences. And give me the biggest sentence they can give me. You can make a competition out of it. You can have them do this individually. But the beauty of showing the students, the key is in modeling for the students and taking the time, make that a whole lesson for one day where all they do is level up very simple sentences, because it gives the students, it empowers the students by giving them confidence. It gives the students ownership of the language. They don't feel like, oh, I can't do this. Because it shows them how it's done. So now they have a notion of how it's done. And then they actually produce some sentences that they're going to be proud of. So giving the students that opportunity to experience success in the class, that should be a goal every day in the classroom. And I love doing this at the beginning of the year, because from the very first day they connect with a very positive experience, because they know what it means to level up. And then later on, when I said level up your language, they know exactly what that means. So
I love that. And I
mhm.
love how you do it, Berta, talking about yourself, because I think output for the sake of output is not really, it doesn't have much value in the
Totally
class.
agree.
But when you have output to communicate something, that is like the perfect marriage, right? So you have the output that is like, Berta is just opening a super safe space for students to take that risk. But so that is safe. She is modeling, but also she's sharing her own experience, her own life, and allowing students to share something about their lives. So the purpose is not really to use the verb to like, or it is to express something about your life. So that is, in my view, the perfect marriage of output, is when we can link output to a communicative purpose that is non-linguistic. And by doing that and showing them how to do it, boom. I mean, like, I always get impressed about how much more they push themselves, the kids, to really level up the language when you show them these type of structures to help them.
Absolutely. I totally agree, Claudia. Output for the sake of output, it's we should avoid that. And I know that I used to do it. I
Me
mean, I used
too.
to do so many things that you know what? I like I said, I wish I could ask all my kids from 4 or 5 years ago for forgiveness, because but I did not know better. So
Yeah, me neither, Berta. I'm with you, and I have the same blessing like you do. Like, I have connected with my students really well since year one. It's something that is very, I don't know, natural for me, and I think that's why they gave me so much forgiveness. Because let me tell you, I was a different teacher, and I had a totally different approach and understanding every single like pillar and fundamental ideas of second language acquisition have empowered me to be more intentional. So that was our first tip, is to level up the model, how to level them up. And then with that comes our second tip. And our second tip, it is so powerful. And this has been one that Berta and everybody, I have changed a lot, is provide supporting vocab and sentence friends. Now, in the past, this is what I thought. In the past, I thought that's kind of cheating, right? They're supposed to memorize all these words.
mhm.
So my walls, like, I'm not a very creative decorating person, like my hands and my head, that they don't go together. So sometimes I have vision, but I cannot like execute with my hands. So I'm not like, my class is not a Pinterest class at all, at all. I'm just not that person. So my walls were kind of bare until I understood the power of providing support. And I was like, now I am doing that intentional, because I am giving the sentence frames and the supporting vocab that they need to produce and output more language with a non-linguistic purpose. So now I have these charts in my classroom. I have verbs in my classroom. Now, these words are very specific words because these are function words. Now, when we're talking about concrete words like chair, table, bed, you can see the word. So I think we can add visuals for those words, and students tend to learn those faster because they're concrete. But these words are kind of like function words, but they're so important for them to glue all those concrete words to express meaning. So why we don't give them to them? Why we don't put them on the walls and have them support their language? So I have created, I teach AP, and as Berta knows, and I have shared with everybody, And like, I know if you teach AP, you have that. I have AP kids that are not strong AP students. They may be intermediate low, novice high. So with 5 years of experience in AP, I have learned that the best way for me to support them and make them feel successful and like lower that affective filter have been supporting them with sentence frames where they can start. And sometimes their own language may be minimal at the beginning, but it grows. For example, if I'm asking them to give an advice, I say, pienso que debes. I think that you should. They're giving them the advice. So I think at the beginning they can say, pienso que debes estudiar más. I think that you should study more. So their own language is study more. That's fine. But see how successful they feel? Because they feel, oh my gosh, look what I'm saying. And when you tie this with the level up, then you have students to really start growing in with the language. So supporting vocab and center frames have become a big part of the way I support students to output. And I have this for all the functions that they need to do in intermediate and even in novice, because I teach level 1 too.
And I want to say that this resource is a resource that Claudia created for her AP students, and she has the same model for the conversational task, and she has the one for the presentational task, and the cultural comparison, which is the presentational task, and for the essays. And you can get this resource even if you don't teach AP. And I mean, this is such a valuable resource, even if you don't teach AP. Especially for Spanish 3, Spanish 4, and even Spanish 2. You can get it for free. Like I said, I'm going to share with you the presentation at the end, and you can get it for free by clicking on the image. It will take you to where you can download it. The third strategy to support students is actually integrating word walls and anchor charts to facilitate comprehension of the language. So if you see here in the PowerPoint, the picture that you have is a picture of my classroom actually, and I have a lot of rejoinders on my wall, like phrases that the students, sometimes, they come up in conversation and sometimes they don't, but the students are familiar with them and they use them in their writing. So for this particular day, I remember we had just read a novel and I asked them to make a very tiny summary of the chapter in their own words. And I said, please make sure you add reactions with rejoinders to your writing. I just invited them to do that. So you see this young lady over here, she's taking a picture of the rejoinders, and that's because she might not be able to see all the way over there. So she's magnifying it, or she's taking a picture of it so she can use it in her writing. And like Claudia has said in the past, sometimes we might think, but they're going to use it. And that's what we want. We want them to know where everything is. We want them to know, okay, to the left, my teacher has words that I can, words, phrases that I can integrate to react to my writing, or to, or I can use as something that for some dialogue that I'm including on my story. And then in the front of the classroom, I see the questions. So if I have some question in text and I don't understand what the word cuando, when means, I can look in the front and I can figure out what that means. And then, to the right, she has all these transition words that it's for my writing. And so the students get familiar with all of that. They pay attention to that and they appreciate to have that. So,
Berta, I want to interrupt you because I think you made a great point, which is that word. They have appreciation for that. I have learned that when I provide this for my students so they successfully can output some language, they feel I care. They have this sense of like, she really wants us to succeed. She really wants me to use that. She's not hiding the information for me. So that appreciation is like so important. I believe that in a world language class, the connection and the classroom culture, it is so paramount. Yes. Because we are in language, and language errors, I don't want to call them errors, but I don't know what other word I can use, but errors are of the essence. Like, they will all the time. There will never be a perfect production. There will never be a perfect pronunciation. That perfection will never happen in our class, because language is alive, and it moves, and it's really messy, and that's what is language. So that culture of like, I got you. Look at what I'm giving
and
you.
you build that trust. You build
Oh,
you help to
yes,
build so much
Berta.
trust.
Absolutely.
So our strategy, this one's very simple. So we want to invite you, if you don't already have rejoinders in your class, and someone asks, what is a rejoinder? Like words expressions that we use in the target language. So I'm going to use some in English, because I know we have teachers who teach several languages in here. For example, like whatever, or what's another one? How ridiculous, or you don't say, things like that. So phrases that we might not get to use in the classroom on a daily basis if we are teaching vocabulary, but that are useful and the students can acquire. And let me tell you, they will pick their own set of phrases.
Oh, yes, they do.
That they like to use. So, student A is not going to develop the same repertoire of rejoinders as student B and student C. They're only going to retain the ones that they care to use, and that is okay, as long as they have a variety of them that they are adapting.
And I think when you have these word walls and you make them alive, and I think that is very important. I think sometimes we tend to create word walls because they look pretty, and then we never refer to them and we never use them, and they kind of like, they lose their purpose. But when you have those rejoinders and you ask your students, use them, point them. I do calendar talk every morning. And one of my rejoinder is good luck when we have a game, like a Friday game or a test. And like, oh, I have test tomorrow. And I say, clase. And everybody trying to say, buena suerte, good luck. And then
I remember too that a rejoinder and a classroom password of mine was si se puede, like yes we can. And I know that we used it and my students loved it. And then anytime I asked them, hey, we're going to do this, that, and the other, and I said, can we do it? And then they all said, oh, yes, we can. Yes, we can. So it develops a really beautiful culture. And then I want to add one more thing that I wasn't planning to say, but I just kind of like, I thought about it just now, and I'm just going to share it with you. Something that I do in my class in the beginning of the year, I give them a classroom tour of what I have in my classroom and why it's there. Everything that I have in my class has a purpose. So I tell them, I introduce to them the rejoinders, and I introduce to them the question words, and I introduce them to the sweet 16, the like high frequency verbs, 16 high frequency verbs that I have in my classroom, and transition words and what they're for. And I just kind of introduce those aspects of my walls to them. And I said to them, you're welcome to use them at any time during teaching or during tasks that you have to produce. That's what they're there for. So it is important, although we might not think about it, it's important to give our students permission and show them what resources we have put together for them, so that they know what's available to them. So my advice is view your classroom walls as tools to support and enhance your students' language development. And Claudia, you want to add something about online learning and word walls, because you discover your own word walls in online language recently.
I know. So I think it is, like now we have this situation where what are we going to do? What about if we don't go back to the classroom and we don't have all our walls? So I think we need to be creative. And what I found is there's so many things that we can use in our remote learning if we are going to go there. So one of the things that we can use is, of course, we can use our walls in our class, in our videos, and write them out. Now, I feel like that wouldn't be a choice for me because I don't have a whiteboard in my class, in my house, and I don't think I have a lot of, I have a couple of kids who have visual impairment, and I think it's going to be hard to see. Now, another thing is when you create your presentation, you can frame it. So in the frame, instead of putting like a pretty frame, you can put the question words on top, and on the side, you can put the structure that you really, really want the students to focus on, and the frequent verbs, the transitional words, the rejoinders, depending on where you are. So if I'm doing my calendar talk, I'm going to have the rejoinders that I use to wish good luck, or, or, oh my gosh, what a bad luck, or what a great idea, or whatever rejoinders we need to use to interact, they will be there, and the question words too. So that is for remote learning. So something that I think it can work for us is just to create, instead of the frames like Berta has in her presentation, the pretty purple frame. So instead of that, we can create the frames for question words, which are really, really important, but then other vocab or sentence frames that you want the students to do.
Laura del Moral is saying that teachers have used it as a background for Zoom. Yes, that's exactly what Claudia is referring to use it as a background instead of having a picture of somewhere beautiful. I mean, I'm not saying that you can't do that. We're never going to tell you what you can and cannot do. We respect your preferences in anything that you decide to do. But what we're saying is that some teachers have done this and adapt the word wall very easily by having them as a background image on their Zoom presentation, so that the students can still see all those questions while the teacher's delivering input.
Yeah. So, and okay, let's move to the next one. Otherwise, we're going to stay here until
I know, right?
I know, right?
So the next one is provide an anchor chart to support the use of the past tense or any tense or anything that you're targeting in general. So here is an example from Claudia, and I'm going to let her talk about this one.
Okay, so I told you that I don't do pretty, right? I don't like. I just need to find me a designer to design my things, because I'm not that person. And I really believe that when I invite my students to create with me, the ownership is incredible. The classroom culture grows. The trust factor, it gets stronger. So I invite you to always, every time that you do something in the class, think if you can get input from your students. And I'm going to tell you, I was hesitant at the beginning. I'm a controlling person. So for so many years when I was, as a teacher, I wanted to do everything perfect the way that I wanted, because this is the way that I learned. This is the way that I think it should be. And I created every single aspect in my lesson plan. It was just me. And I felt like I thought it was interesting for the students, but I didn't get much input from my students, because I was kind of like afraid of, what about if they say a bad word? What about if they say something that is not appropriate? What about if they say something that it may be offensive for another student? But I have learned that my students are amazing, that they really, if we build that really strong relationship, they will produce incredibly great ideas. So anchor charts, I use anchor charts a lot, and the anchor chart is exactly what it is. It's an anchor chart. It's something that we produce together with vocab and structures that we are going to use to create something. Some of them I use and I have it on my walls, but some of them I want to create with that. So this is something that I create with my novice class, and I had this anchor chart here in my class, in my house, and that's why I took a picture and I posted there. But I did the same thing with my next level of my class in the past tense. So what I do is I have my 7 superverbs. You can see in Spanish there is I am, I'm not, I have, I don't, I want, I don't, I go, I don't go, to I like, I don't like. And then with my students, we were going to create a story here. So I wanted them to narrate, and it wasn't in the past tense, it was the present tense. But I wanted to create a story, and I wanted to say, okay, there is a person, and the person has a problem because the person is or is not. and I wanted to do in first person. So as a class, we start creating this, and it was amazing. And it stayed there on my wall for the rest of the year because all the words, and they felt like, oh my gosh, we know all this. And like, yes, you do. And then when I tied that anchor chart that we co-created with the poster that I created, then we have a perfect marriage. And that allowed them for the narration of the story that they were creating. I do anchor charts for vocab. I do anchor charts with my AP class. I do anchor charts with my IB class. I do anchor charts for all my levels.
And can I just kind of interrupt you there? We had a question earlier that I didn't answer earlier because I knew we were going to be talking more in depth about anchor charts. But Melinda had a question at the beginning, and I hope Melinda's still listening. She asked, "Did you create your anchor charts with your students?" And the answer is yes, right, yes. Claudia? Because anchor charts are created with the students because that's how that co-creation process really helps them again take that ownership. And they have a deeper connection with that than if we had just purchased a pretty poster. Nothing against pretty posters, because I have some in my classroom with, like Claudia says, I also don't do pretty, but if I can buy pretty, I buy pretty. So, and then we had one more question, Claudia, that said, how would this support work in an online environment? Absolutely, you can still come up, well, maybe it won't look like it can look like an anchor chart if you write it on a piece of paper and you project your writing. Right?
And you can also do Padlet, for example. I love Padlet because it allows you that. So if you do a Padlet and you create with columns and maybe you give a title in the columns and share that Padlet with your students and ask them to start writing the words. So again, I understand the hesitation of a lot of teachers to allow this writing be live because it's like, oh my gosh, what are they gonna write? What about if they do this? I try to do reverse psychology because that's how I was raised. So my mom always said to me, I know that you never do that to me. I know that you will ever lie to me. I know that you will always do the right thing. I know that you love me so much that you will never hurt me like that. I do that with my students. And it has worked. But again, this is my reality. So for example, Padlet has an option where you can moderate what they write. So if you want to share a Padlet with your students and add that option so you can approve every word. I don't do it. In my experience, it has served me well to give that trust to my students. But again, it is something that each teacher has to decide. But that I feel like in online, we still can create these anchor charts. And I'm telling you, this is so powerful when you co-create with your students.
Somebody has a question, Claudia. Piedad is asking, can you guide me about this, please? It was suggested from my professor not to provide translations. What do you think? A lot of teachers and a lot of teachers who do CI do not provide translations. So if personally, I like to have my rejoinders and my question words in my Suite 16. I have the translation on it, but you don't have to have it. So you can just, but the translation is like this tiny. But if you don't have to have it, and in this anchor chart, you can see Claudia does not have any translation. So if they're asking you not to have one, then you can make sure your rejoinders or your whatever you're gonna use doesn't have a translation. Now, as far as like for example, this handout that's on the screen right now that says narrating what happened, this one does have a translation. And in this context, I think there's a lot of debate about that. It's just a matter of you doing the research and bringing it to your professor. And I mean, obviously, I'm not telling you to go get into an argument with your professor about it, but it's called defending your practice. And that is something that we need to do a lot more of, because a lot of the times our admins come into our classroom, and many times I have really nice admins, but I've heard of the people that didn't have such nice admins, and they have to, and you're using CI activities and whatnot, and it's always helpful to know and to talk in that language that admins like to hear, and explain our processes to them.
Yeah, I agree, Berta. And in my view, but again, this is my view, I don't mind. Like, I really, truly don't mind. Because I feel like for me, I need to provide comprehensible input at all times. If I'm providing amazing word wall with amazing rejoinders or amazing transitional words, and my kids don't have a clue of what they mean, especially because most of them are function words. So like for example, for car, you can draw a car, right? You can draw a dog, you can draw a dog, but what are you going to do for therefore? Like, how do you do a visual for therefore? So I can spend 35 minutes to try to put por eso, therefore, as establishing meaning, or I can provide the translation. So I think
absolutely. I think when you can draw it, it's so helpful to draw it. And if you can't draw like me, then you get a student who can draw it. And then, so just like we use images to convey the message or convey the meaning, we can use L1 writing to convey the meaning. Obviously, we're not going to abuse it. We're just using it for the few words that we're trying to target. But again, when it gets into defending our practice, that's when reading second language acquisition articles, second language acquisition books helps a lot, so that we can articulate our position on the matter.
Yeah.
Okay. The next thing we want to touch on, I'm sorry, I can't talk tonight, guys, is the role of a model text in the classroom. This is something that really helps us lead the students. I mentioned modeling earlier, modeling how to level up. That was how to level up sentences. So now I'm going to talk to you about the role of a model text, using an actual text that either you wrote as a teacher or that a student created to lead the students to output. So again, why is this important? Well, if we look at the gradual release model, which is kind of like, we might have heard about it by talking about the lesson should be I do it, we do it, you do it together, you do it alone, which goes from focused instruction from the teacher to guided instruction, collaborative learning, and then independent learning. That's kind of like where applying a model text comes in. So in English language arts classes, a mentor text refers to a piece of writing recently published by a professional writer. That is the case. That could be the case for us too in an AP course, or maybe in a Spanish 4 course, or in a Spanish 3 course, if we find a really, really good, authentic resource. However, for us, the way I see mentor text and what I call a mentor text in my classroom is not necessarily a writing that's been recently published. A mentor text in my classroom or in a world language classroom actually could take the form of a write and discuss you co-created with your class. If you're familiar with what write and discuss means, and it's actually what it says. You write with your students about a topic and you discuss it and you produce a paragraph like the one you have on the screen. And then something else that could become a mentor text for your class is a text that you as a teacher independently created ahead of time to model strong writing in general or a specific structure. So maybe you're targeting, you want your students to be able to use transitional elements in the writing. Maybe that you create a text that's very rich with different transitional phrases in there, and you show them to your students and you highlight. It could be again, not output for the sake of output. You're always, it could be a text, a cultural text or something like that where they can learn about culture, but we can also make notes about the transitional elements usage in that specific mentor text. And something else that you could use as a mentor text in your classroom is after an assessment or before an assessment, you give the students the opportunity to write a paragraph and you select the best one and you can highlight the richness of that paragraph for the rest of your students so that later on the other students know what an A plus paragraph looks like, and they can rise up to that expectation. So when we're thinking about mentor text, it's important to determine the purpose when we are going to select what kind of mentor text we're going to do. For example, if we're going to do the write and discuss, or if we're going to create one ourselves, or we're going to pick one from a student. Why do we want to use that mentor text? Is it to highlight specific target structures like the past tense maybe? In context, of course. Is it going to be to highlight specific writing elements? Or is it to highlight what really great sentences look like, super leveled up sentences look like? There's different reasons as to why we would use a mentor text in the classroom, but it goes back to the fact that modeling is so important, and picking the right item to model is key. So do you have anything else, Claudia, that you want to add about mentor text?
I mean, a lot. I have a lot, but I want to think about if you teach AP, I want you to think about what AP that or College Board does for us. They put a sample of responses done by students, and they don't necessarily has to be the best one, but they give you one for 5, they give you one for 4, 3, 2, 1, and the purpose of those mentor texts, even the one, is for us or for students to notice what the elements of a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So like when we're doing a persuasive essay, like we want to see a strong thesis. Like, okay, so let's compare these 4. What do you see? And I found, and that goes back to some comment that we did a couple of weeks ago when Berta and I were talking about intermediate courses. Berta said that Berta and I did the same thing, and Berta said that she was going to write a blog on that. So we're waiting for that blog post, Berta. But she said that she was going to write a blog about the importance of teaching our students to proficiency. Because when you have that experience of our students with proficiency and you provide this mentor text, they start seeing some elements that are required to level up their language. And then we are going to stop being those helicopter teachers and stop doing the reflection for them. And then the student is having all the elements to like, oh, really? This is what is happening. This is how this is. And this is modeling is going to provide them the reflection.
Now that you said that, Claudia, it leads me to think and even say that with a mentor text, students actually have the opportunity to do silent self-reflection of their work.
Yes. I totally agree. And I love to see the students be in charge of the language. And I think something that I have learned, like it hasn't been easy for me because I try to control, is let go. It's like they need to have in charge.
I think that's most of us teachers. We have to learn to let go, because that's most of us. I know I had to struggle with that too.
I just throw, and that ownership is so important. So that was one comment that I wanted to do. Like, these mentor texts are really great tools for our students to self-reflect on their proficiency level. And that always goes after they know what it looks, the different proficiency levels. So that is so, so important. The second element that I wanted to talk about it was the co-creation of a text. And I already said it, but I really invite you to try to listen and have the students voice it. And when I do this, this is something that I did with my level 1. Again, I had anyways. This is something that I did with my level 1, and I was comparing. So I was comparing the schedule of a kid in Colombia with the schedule of a student at Paxson, which is my school. And this is level 1. But this is after we talk about different schedules, after I show them authentic schedules from a kid in Colombia. I went to school in Colombia. I have cousins in Colombia, so I was able to provide those authentic elements. And it was the difference were like, wow. And that was engaging, and that was authentic, and that was a purpose. So our purpose was really to compare those two. I wasn't teaching them to use the verb is to describe. I wasn't teaching them to use the verb tener to express how many classes they have. That wasn't the purpose. The purpose was to compare. And that's a function. And that leads us to the next last tip,
which is focus language functions. So as we know, language functions are as described by ACFL, defined by ACFL, language tasks that the student is able to handle. But just because they did it one time doesn't mean that they are there yet. ACFL says that it needs to be done consistently in a comfortable way, it needs to be sustained, and it needs to be spontaneous. So the language functions that are key to intermediate learners are describing not only people, places, or things, but relations and situations and events. And Claudia, you want to elaborate on the rest?
Yes, I want to. This is something that it has happened in the last 2 years. I am not using a textbook anymore, but when I was doing a textbook, I was really focused on those last pages of vocab and language structure, and I always kind of like hunted me. Like I wanted to make sure that my kids were covering X, Y, and Z. And that was kind of like my purpose. But since I've been learning more about second language acquisition, I've been focusing on functions. So what are the functions that intermediate learners must do? So I'm not focusing, I need to cover the health unit. I need to cover the house unit. I need to cover the social media unit or the technology unit or the family unit. I am more focused on like, what my students can do with the language about that topic. So what an intermediate learner looks like, an intermediate learner should be able to describe with some detail. Okay, now in novice, they start describing of themselves like I am, or I'm not, or I have, or I don't have, or my best friend is, or my mom is. But we're gonna just kind of like do a little bit more. So we're describing people, places, and things, but also we're describing events, situation, and even feelings. We start narrating events. We start expressing and supporting opinions. So again, it's like, what are we doing? So when we ask our students to output, we don't want, again, to ask them to output for the sake to output. We want them to describe. So what I want to describe, I want to describe, or I want you to give me suggestions. So I did this great project at the beginning of COVID-19, where I tried to have a look at a positive way for this pandemic. So I was like, we need to give advice how we can spend our time at home in a positive way. So I wanted to we want to create a social media campaign with hashtags. And of course, what type of a grammar structure we were using? Commands. But my purpose was not to practice command by giving suggestion. My purpose was to let's tell our classmates what we can do at home. And we created a hashtag, and they did the hashtag, they published it, and then we created a challenge where the kids, the students, were taking pictures of themselves doing that thing. So they were reading a book. So they were hashtag lee un libro, read a book. There were a hashtag help your family, ayuda a tu familia. So they were taking a picture and they were, tagging me in the hashtag with them washing dishes with the mom. So again, I was focusing on the function, describing, narrating, expressing opinion, giving suggestion, asking information, and clarifying questions, and initiate, engage in conversation. Always having in mind that my purpose is non-linguistic. I don't want them to narrate what they did last weekend because I want to practice predated. No, I want to know what you did last weekend. I want to know what was the best movie in Netflix that you want and why you want it. So it is kind of the same. Like, it's not like, I'm not going to use the past tense anymore in my class. No, of course we're going to use it. But my purpose when I design these experiences for my students is to have a communicative. I want to know all the Netflix because, my kids are like 14, so they watch, I don't know, I want to know because I really want to have conversation with them. And if I'm not watching what they're watching, then I will
Absolutely. I
conversation.
mean, it opens the door for more connections to
Oh
know
my God,
everything about we
totally.
can about our students.
Totally,
Okay.
totally. So that is the invitation. And of course, this is your function. This is the language function, what they can do. Now, how they can do it. And that is where you're going to do the model. This is when you're going to do the sentence frames. This is where you're going to provide the vocab and the transitional words. When we want intermediate, we want to have sentences, series of sentences, and connected sentences. And your content is going to be the intermediate environment, and you're going to start touching in the world. So you're going to be opening. That's why it's so amazing, intermediate classes. That is what it makes it so fun. That is not like only about me, but maybe me and somebody else. So it is, I mean, it's such a fun class. I really enjoy these classes, but year after year after year, I become more intentional about how I'm supporting my students so they feel that I get them, like I got them, like they can work with me, and I don't expect perfection. I don't expect grammar accuracy. We're not talking about that. We're talking about how we can communicate in the language. And it is impressive when you see the little faces.
Absolutely. And then, this type of approaching it this way inspires you to create your own resources for your classes, which are ultimately the best resources for your classes are the ones that you as a teacher can create for them. And doesn't really, I know that the idea of creating sometimes it seems overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be that way. A Write Discuss does not really need any prep ahead of time.
Nothing.
And definitely Write and Discuss connects to the students in many wonderful ways, and it totally takes the writing to a different level. But let's remember that at the end of the day, intermediate level is messy. So we're not teaching you to go for perfection here. We're not telling you that with these strategies, your students are going to write perfectly. Some of them will, but they're all going to be creating at their own level. They're all going to be advancing. They're all gonna be pushing themselves to output more because you are modeling for them and because you are using some intentional strategies to get them to process the language and output the language in a way that they're challenging themselves and they're taking ownership of it. So is this easy to do? What do you think, Claudia? Is this easy to do? Do you learn it overnight?
No, you don't. Like, no, I haven't finished learning. Have you?
Yeah, no, not at all.
No,
Not at all.
not at all.
Not at all. I mean, I know what things work and what things don't work, but I'm still trying and testing some things sometimes.
Yeah, me
It's
too.
definitely not something you learn overnight. It does take reading, researching, using different resources, trying different
It takes a
resources
lot
with
of
your
failing.
students.
It takes a lot of failing, let me tell you. It takes
Yes.
a lot of failing, and I really invite you, because something that have motivated me, and I know Berta is the same, is to see the success, is to see your students engage, is to see Berta receive a great text by a student today.
Oh yeah, I did.
I'm gonna let you share that with everybody, but it's when you receive those texts of students that are not in your class. It's when you give the students that love, and that is not about perfection. It's not about even being good. I mean, like whatever you call good at it, is to feel empowered that you can do it and you are not being judged. And when you give that support, your students are going to go outside your classroom and they're going to look for opportunities to continue their growth in the language. And when that happens, and when you receive those texts like Berta received today, like, this is working, I need to learn more, I need to do more, because I want to impact one more student the way that I impacted.
I want to read that message if people want to hear it. I don't know. I hope I don't lose you guys because I know we're running a little bit over an hour. But yes, my student sent me this message. She said, "Hi, I started using Babbel to keep up my Spanish over the summer." Now, this student is a student that left my class after Spanish 2 and couldn't take Spanish 3 because she got placed in the college program where she goes and takes college classes. Her last year as a senior. So she hasn't been a student of mine for this like 2 years ago. She was a student of mine. So she said she developed a good bit of Spanish, and she said she's using Babbel to keep up with my Spanish. Okay. So she's taking ownership of her Spanish over the summer, and she said it introduced me to 2 podcasts I think you would help your students at the beginner's Spanish. The beginner Spanish podcast is called A Zero to a Hero, and the intermediate podcast is called Palabras Bravas, and they are both available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It didn't charge me anything. I just thought it might help you out, inspiring some students you may meet next semester.
I love it.
Yes, I know. She totally made my day. She totally made my day.
And then when that happened, it's just really say what I'm doing is working. I want to keep doing it even better for my next student. If I can impact. So we have a question. I don't know if you can bring it up, Berta, but it says, do you guys have rubrics at the end of the year to see if the students master the concept at grade level? I have something that I have developed last year is a tracker. So where students every quarter are kind of like measuring if they are on the right path. And what I have done with that tracker is I give them suggestions, because Berta and I have discussed a lot about, so what is the target goal? What is the proficiency level? That is just, there are some, but really, as long as we see growth, we are winning our students to become like the student that left Berta says that incredible message. So I have the tracker. I can share that with Berta so she can share with you.
Absolutely. I also use a lot of student self-assessments in my classroom. I started using them this year with the help of Megan Buck. She's amazing. She's actually going to be presenting here at this Facebook Live on July 7th or so. So that's like a surprise. And I'm just kind of, because you stayed until the end, you know that now before everybody else.
She's amazing.
So she is truly amazing. She's going to be talking about setting up our classroom gradebook for proficiency. What an amazing and powerful topic at the beginning of the year. So, about if I have something to track my students, yes, I do a lot of things to track my students' growth over the year. And I'll be happy to, that's a whole other session on its own. Assessment, student self-assessment, regular tracking assessment. I mean, I could be here for hours talking about that. And then I am polishing some of my own, so I can start sharing some of my own. But I'll let you guys know about that. I need a little bit more time to share those, but I'll be happy to. So the next thing is, we just want to tell you that I hope that you have taken some of the strategies. I know that a lot of you already implement some of these. Some of these ideas were new to you. And we have developed something because we want to help the teachers that have told us, how do you do this? How can we do it better for our students? And Claudia and I have developed a course. Now, if at this point, we're here because we want to help you. And if at this point, you want to leave the Facebook Live, that's okay. If you already heard this from us in the presentation before, you can leave, because we're going to be talking about how we can help you. So we have created a course to give you a clear picture of your intermediate learners. So understanding what a novice high looks like, intermediate low, intermediate mid, intermediate high, advanced low, we're probably going to target it all the way to advanced low. And how can we understand them? What does their true proficiency looks like? And understanding what that looks like really helps us connect with those students and have reasonable expectations for them. Then in this course that we have developed, we're also going to give you actionable strategies and ideas to meet your students wherever they are and help them grow. So everything we talked to you already, if you found it helpful, imagine what you're going to get once you decide to look into our course. And then the last thing that we're going to be talking about in our course is more actionable strategies and activities to scaffold input. And we're actually going to give you a unit. Claudia, we're giving a unit, right? That's part of our yes, and we're going to give you some self-assessment tools as well. So if these are your challenges, Claudia, these are the solutions found inside our course, and Claudia is going to let you know about these.
So we know our biggest challenges when it comes to intermediate level, intermediate classes. Students come at different levels for so many reasons, but they all come at different levels. I mean, that is just the way that it is. So how can we help those? How can we understand what is the proficiency level of an intermediate learner so we can level them up? So another struggle that we experience, all of us, is the students cannot stay in language, in the target language. They just want to use their first language at all times. So we're going to provide with the strategies for you to, for your students to stay comprehensible, for you to stay comprehensible using complex tests and help students stay in the second language. Another big one is what we're talking about today, and is how we can help our students output. How can we help our students produce language at their level? We're going to give you the strategies. We're going to give you the how. We're going to give you the what to do with your specific students to help them output. And finally, and I think this is one of the biggest difficulties that we have, is that textbook or that curriculum that is given to us. It's kind of like a vest that sometimes tied us so hard, and we want to liberate you. We want to give you some liberation for you to be creative and strategies. If we're going to use a textbook, how can you use a textbook that doesn't sound that limiting to you? So I'm going to create, I love to create my own units. I think I spent countless hours creating my own units. But the unit that I'm going to give you, or we're going to give you, is something that you can edit. Because Berta and I believe that you have to find that your style. Like, I can give you something that works for me because it speaks from my heart and my personality and my style of teaching. But if it doesn't mean that your style of teaching is wrong. There is not a wrong or right. So we want to provide you with a framework that you can take, edit, and maybe create the second one and maybe share with us. And that way we can enrich this and really have a great conversation about intermediate.
Yes, and so some of the great benefits that if you're interested, you can become a founding member of our course. That means you'll be the first people to purchase this course, and we have a couple of perks if you are going to be, if you decide to join us in this journey, and we'll be super happy to have you. So you will have limited, I'm sorry, lifetime access to the 4 modules we have prepared for you. We're going to give you rubrics for interpersonal and presentational modes, and student self-assessment rubrics, and then obviously Claudia's unit on graffiti. And we're also going to host live Zoom sessions only for the group of people who purchased this course at the beginning, to answer your questions and answers. So we don't know how many people it could be, 10 people, 15 people, 30 people, but we'll definitely do a Zoom live with you guys and answer your questions as you go through the course. And then the price right now, it's going to be $47. So you get that locked in price for the entire course for $47. And then you will have access to an exclusive private Facebook group to receive more support from me and Claudia that's going to be open until August 15th. So
I am so excited about those two, Berta. I am really excited about those two because I mean, like, Berta and I have talked so much about intermediate, and we have like, yes, I know, yes, I know, yes, I know. And we have had so many questions. So we decided to put all this work together, but we just wanted to like give it to you and say, okay, good luck. We want to like do it with you. And that's why, because this
and help you troubleshoot some of the things that maybe you won't be able to troubleshoot on your own, or you will be able to troubleshoot on your own, but it'll take you a lot longer to do it on your own. So we'll be there to guide you every step on the way. And we already have an open cart right now that you can go and check out the page and see if the course is something you're interested in. If you're interested in it, then you can go ahead and purchase it. But the course itself is not going to be accessible until June 29, right, Claudia?
Yes.
Yes, and that's because we're going to personalize it a lot for the needs of our participants.
And we want to have like, it's going to be 28, and that's going to be the last day that the course is going to be open for now. It will, I mean, it will be open later again, but we really want to create this group of founding member when we can like walk with you the course and talk to you and give you this coaching style course. I am so excited, Berta. So we all are going to start the same day, June 29th. Now, if you cannot make the Zoom live sessions that we're going to have, that's okay. We will send you the replay. But we really want to talk to you to see
And then
what do you think.
we want to tell them that 10% of our profits we're going to donate. Can you talk to them about that, Claudia, while I go ahead and put the link on the Facebook page?
Yeah, so Berta and I recognize the difficulties that our communities are suffering. We know that a lot of undocumented immigrants are really been struggling in this due to the pandemic. We know that a lot of people have been hurt, and we also think that as educators, some of our kids in our classrooms, parents are unemployed, and we want to help, and we want to donate 10% of any revenues coming from this course to Feeding America, and really work on those basic needs, because we know that when you are suffer from not having food on your table, that just basic need, how come we can ask you, our students, to come and share and create and do all this? So it may not be much, but is with all our heart, we want to really impact our students, make a difference in their life, but also if we're in this situation when we can help, we want to contribute even more. So we want to give back. And because we feel like we're blessed, we have our jobs and we have that job security for now. For now, but I am so excited about this. I'm really, really excited to work with Berta. It's been such a blessing for us to find each other, and also to share that with you and work with all of you. So if you,
Yes, yes. So thank you so much, Claudia, for being here and always just inspiring us with your knowledge. Um, and I mean, just like you said, for you it has been a blessing. I mean, I can't. I have to say the same. It's been wonderful working with you, and getting to know you through just the work we have decided to do together. So
yeah,
so thank you so much for being here. And then Claudia and I will be looking back over the comments at some point. Well, I'm going to do that right after this live is done, and I'm going to try to answer and give you some links. I just posted the link to the presentation, so you can make a copy of the presentation. And then I also posted the link to where to purchase the course. But I'm also going to post the link with an image on the overall Facebook group so that it's easy for you to find. And if you have any friends that you think would benefit from this course, feel free to share that information with them. And we would love to have you. And we look forward to learning alongside you and sharing what we know. So thank you so much for being here tonight, guys.
yeah, thank you. Have a great night.
You guys have a great night.